Hey everybody, it's Dimitri with your daily healing work facilitation tip. Now, I know there have been sort of two different ways or two different types of tips that I've been giving. I've been giving some of the tips that are specific things you can do in specific situations, like what if this person can't get angry, or what if they make a lot of jokes, or something like that. But a lot of the tips I've been giving have been more like, how do you think about this? How do you approach facilitation work? How do you approach doing healing work with people? So it's more of a meta level thing, and that's what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about the three levels of personal development that when you know where you are sort of working on these three levels, it can be helpful. So I just want to, and also it gives you a sense of in your own personal journey, what might be the next thing for you in the different levels of personal development. So, all right, the first level of personal development is living from your desires. It's I want what I want when I want it. And this is sort of the person before they've done any sort of personal work. But on this level of personal development, you're willing to use your money, you're willing to use your persuasiveness, you're willing to use other people, your power and authority, whatever it takes to get what you want. So the upside of this level of just living from your desires is that sometimes you feel some pleasure. And the downside of living from this level is it's actually pretty destructive. A lot of bad things happen when we live from our impulses, but when we're on this level, we don't really know any better. So then something happens that has us say, you know what, I have to look at my life more deeply. We may have some sort of a crisis or an addiction that gets us into treatment or 12 steps, or maybe we do like a men's weekend or a women's weekend, some sort of initiation thing where we start to see things differently. And the big thing that changes in most initiatory weekends are people go from level 1 to level 2. They go from living from their desires to living from their emotions. And at this point, the important thing is I want to live my feelings. I want to feel my feelings fully and congruently and live from them. So at this level, it's like if I'm sad, I want to be sad. If I'm angry, I want to be angry. If I'm ashamed, I want to be ashamed. I want to be living. If I'm happy, I want to be happy. I want to be living and fully, congruently expressing my emotions and who I am. Big shift from I just want I want to hide my emotions and just feel pleasure in the moment at the first level. Boom, it's a big shift. Okay, so what we do to live that way is we use support groups, people who think like us and are willing to be honest about and be responsible for their emotions. We do weekends, we staff weekends, we do this carpet work, healing work stuff. And the upsides of all this is we get to live with authenticity and congruence and connection to other people when we're at this second level of personal development, coming from that our desire to live authentically from our emotions. The downsides of it we don't think about a lot, which are if you really prioritize your emotions and being congruent with your emotions, it can actually make it hard to get things done. It can. Now, rather than turning your back on your emotions like you do in level 1 and level 2, you're saying, no, they're important. They have their own rise and fall. They can get in the way of doing some of the things you want to do in your life. Emotions are upsetting. You can spend a bunch of time being upset, going through difficult experiences. If being congruent and authentic with your feelings is your most important thing. And also, I think even the kind of the biggest downside is it's very difficult to relate to people who are still on level 1. It's hard to relate to people who aren't prioritizing living congruently from their emotions once you've gotten to that level of personal development. You hear this a lot, I've been around men's weekends for a zillion years, right? And guys go through men's weekends, they're great. I'm in touch with my emotions. I'm congruent. I know how to authentically express who I am. And boy, my wife or partner, they do not do that. And it's a big problem. And a lot of times I feel like that actually becomes an excuse for ending the relationship or pressuring the other person to change. Because they're not on the same level I am, I have to get rid of them. I can't relate to them. This also, I remember I used to do couples counseling with the couples together. Now I never do that. I only do couples counseling with people individually because in my experience that works a bazillion times better. For really recreating, I don't know, attraction or arousal or liking, stuff like that. Really works to work your issues, right? But I was working with this couple. And the guy was like, he'd done a men's weekend. He was all excited. He's like, I can do clean communication. I can cleanly talk about what it is that upsets me about what you do and how the emotions that I feel and the judgments that I make. And I can go through this on what I really want from you. He does this. He kind of outlays or very clearly, exactly like we're taught, to cleanly communicate, what you're up against, what you want, how you feel, all this stuff. And she looked at him with a mix of disgust and pity. And I'll never forget this. She said, have you seen a doctor to find out if maybe there's something wrong with your brain? I think maybe there's something wrong with your brain. And that was because they weren't on the same level. He was certainly into congruently expressing his emotions, however they showed up in the moment. But this person who was important in his life had no relationship with that and didn't want it. And so that's a real downside of being at that level that we really don't look at, which is other people who aren't playing by the same rules can become very difficult to relate to. But, and of course, there are upsides. You get to have a life of congruence and an authentic expression of your emotions. That's great. And it's significantly better than level 1, where it's just I want what I want when I want it, and I'm willing to debase myself and others to get it, right? It's progress, but there's still some sticking points and problems to living at that level. So now I want to talk about the third level of personal development. If the first level is living from your desires, and the second level is living from your emotions, the third level of personal development is living from your blessing. So what does that mean? It means living from your certain experienced knowledge that there is love for you and every part of you that you are able to tap into at any point. So from this point of view, your intention is to live in the blessing current all the time. Like the intention of level 1 is to get what you want. The intention of level 2 is to live congruently with your emotions, whatever they may be. The intention of level 3 is to be in your blessing current at all times. Rumi, right, the Sufi poet, he talks about being in the state of prayer and in the light of the divine at all times. That really becomes your goal. So how do we do that? Right? On the first level, how we get what we want is by just sort of forcing outcomes. On the second level, how we live congruent with our emotions is sort of surrounding ourselves with people who live the same way. On the third level, the way that we figure out how to live from our emotions is we take whatever experiences life throws at us and we use those as guides back to finding the parts of ourselves that aren't experiencing blessing and bringing blessing to those parts. Let me tell you what I mean. Like, for instance, I may be upset in my marriage. I may be angry with my wife for some reason. Now, on the first level of personal development, I would just try and figure out a way to force her to do what I wanted. Okay, not so great. Second level, way better. I would congruently express my emotions to her and explain to her my desires and where that came from. And she may get that or she may not. I'm way into this personal work stuff. She's really not. On the third level, what I would look at is I would say, okay, where's my sort of discouragement in what I'm upset about with her? It's like, okay, well, so say maybe she made me late, right? Something that happens. And I'm being upset about that. Now, level 1 would be I'm going to find a way to force her to be in the car all the time so we can get out of the house. Level 2 is I'm going to find a way to express to her my upset and my desire about how I want things to be different. The third level, if I'm looking for my blessing, I'm saying, wow, in this situation where my wife is making me late and I'm getting upset, I'm upset. That means there's a part of me that's not feeling blessing right now. Let me find out about that. And I start to look and say, wow, all right, well, I'm upset because I feel like I'm backed into a corner. I feel like I'm living in a universe where my only choices in this relationship are to yell at this woman or just to get used to being late to stuff. And both of those are heartbreaking. Wow, there's a part of me that's heartbroken. Feeling heartbroken is not feeling blessed. Okay, well, how does my real true blessing current, which I've done work to find out about, how does it feel about me even when I've bought the idea that my life is set up in such a way that in my marriage I can either yell at my wife or I can just get used to being late all the time? Whoa, there's a lot of love for me when I feel it. There's compassion. All right, I'll start to check in. Wow. wow, there's mercy and compassion for me. That's a hard way to live, and I can see that. I start looking with the eyes of compassion at that part of myself, and I start feeling that's not the way the universe is structured. It really isn't. There's a lot of love for me when I feel that broken, and when I feel that love, I start to realize that actually, in a lot of ways, my wife's an inspiration to me. In a lot of ways, I'm an inspiration to her. And I really feel like it gives me the ability to sort of, rather than reach out the fist to try and force her or manipulate her, I feel like I can reach out the hand and say, I feel like when, open my heart, like there's a way in which I withdrew from her, I can reconnect with her. And when I do that, that gives new possibility for how things can move forward. And I've done a lot of this work with my wife around this, and I'll explain that later, but I get to a place where a new part of me that felt heartbroken starts to feel blessed, and I start to act from that. And then the man I am in my relationship changes, and that change makes our relationship better, right? That's the third level. That's living from the blessing and using my upsets in life to seek out the places in me that still feel like I'm doomed and have a bitter fate, and to bring love to those parts so they can be transformed. That's that third level of personal development. So, I run this thing called the Inner King Training, right? The Inner King Training is a workshop for men. InnerKing.com. But the whole point of that is to bring men from that second level to the third level, so they start to live from their blessings. And there may be levels beyond the third level. I kind of get hints of them occasionally, but it kind of feels like that's beyond my pay grade. I think there's sort of a Zen level of where you've released everything and nothing has any impact, but that's just not me. I don't have the spirit for that. I'm kind of parked at this level. And so when you're leading, when you're facilitating, maybe this is something to keep in mind. What level are you helping people to go from? Are you helping them to go from the kind of the bitter, broken life where they have to force an outcome to a life where they're congruent? That's great. You can't skip that step. Are you helping them go from the place where being upset now leads to feeling blessing and living their life on a whole new level? Because you may be doing that work as well. Okay, as usual, I'm doing this every weekday for a while. Share this if you think it'll help people. Leave comments. Let me know what you think. And I will talk to you tomorrow.